press the button.
Am I over too far?
We are Are you over too far? I don't know. Hello, everybody. Let me have a second here to press some buttons.
No.
Thank you so much for being here. You're still scooching?
I am. I was confused by the left to the right. I think I'm all right now.
I think you're just fine.
I think I'm good.
How is everybody? Glad you're hanging out with us tonight. Want to say thank you to Michelle right off the bat there for the little super sticker guy. Appreciate that very, very much. So thank you for that. Tonight we've got all kinds of things going on because we have a subject that I want to cover. 5 ways that you can seriously mess up your aquarium. I think many of you will probably get these 5 ways. Possibly many of you have done at least one of these 5 things. I know I have in the past. In fact, the reason why I know there are 5 ways to mess up your aquarium, because I'm going to come out and just say, I've done all 5.
Well,
So I've done all
that's what
5
happens.
of the things that can make our lives a little bit more difficult when it comes to keeping fish. So we're going to do that. We do have a giveaway a little bit later tonight. So we've got all the stuff right here, just right outside of your view. So that's going to be happening as well. And we'll just wait for all the KG Tropicals people to roll on in. If you're not seeing that on a Thursday evening before us, definitely worth checking out. So
Whip.
Yep, they are right before us. So let me get some things pressed and going here, and want to make sure all the other stuff is turned on properly, because that's just what we like to do here. Close out all these things that are going on. So anyway, we have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about this fine evening. So for instance, videos that have been going on in the last week or so. This list seems to just be getting longer and longer and longer now that we have like a million channels to talk about. So Sunday on this channel, Primetime Aquatics, I did a video review on this thing. This is the ATI Hydro branded sponge filter. If you have been watching this channel for any length of time, you will know this thing is the sponge filter that we have been using for a very, very, very long time. Have used hundreds of these. And so if you want to learn about the ATI brand Hydro sponge filter, go ahead, check out that video from Sunday, because I think you will enjoy it. Now on Monday, on the Tank Talk podcast, John and I talked about top 10 cichlids for community tanks. That was a fun one.
Yeah,
and
I bet.
If you haven't seen it yet, Tank
haven't
Talk
seen it
podcast, I purposely picked 5. Most of them are unusual. Most likely for a lot of you, you might not have heard of 1 or 2, but they are awesome. So check that out if you haven't already done so. And then on your channel, on Container Joy, your plant channel,
Yeah.
what did you talk about?
What I would call winter vignettes.
Okay, so on Container Joy, winter vignettes apparently is the subject.
It's just fun to hear you say that.
Yeah, it's fun
Although
to
what
say.
you would call decorations.
Yeah,
you
winter
call-
decorations.
You lump everything into decorations.
That's right. And then yesterday on the small scape, what did we talk about there?
My kind of obsessions for 2025.
So things that you really think people should have for
I'm a little
2025.
cray-cray.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today, for our prime timers, we talked about the 75 gallon and how I need to figure out that stocking. There's some good suggestions there. I'm going to have to really think it through, because it's a very boring tank, not on the gallery side, on the fish room side. And
Boring.
then this Sunday, I have a video coming out that I think you're going to find very useful. So that's the land of videos. Where we're going to be, well, this Sunday,
been
we
a
are
while.
going to be at the Quad City Swap in Davenport, Iowa. The website has been updated. It's been up and running. So for those of you who are thinking about heading out to Davenport to check out probably the largest swap in the Midwest, if not the entire United States, they usually run thousands of people there. It is free.
Really?
Yeah,
Possibly in the United States?
possibly in the United States for a swap.
Really?
I mean, if they're running,
I didn't
I've
know
seen
that.
easily 2,000 people there. It's
Wow.
free. It runs from noon to 4 p.m. It's awesome.
They have pizza.
We'll be there.
They have pop.
Website's updated. Go to primetimeaquatics.com. You can see what we've got available for pre-order. We don't ship fish. And then the following Sunday, a week from Sunday, we will be in Northbrook, Illinois at the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association. That is a mighty awesome swap as well. Now, on the 1st of February, we'll be in Tinley Park, and that's at the Greenwater Swap, but we do have something new to announce. And so I'm going to skip ahead to March. I finally got all the details worked out. This is going to be cool. Really excited because we've never been to this before. And the way it seems, it is going to be a 1-day jam-packed extravaganza. And we're going to be part of it. And I'm going to be doing a presentation there. I'm not going to tell you the subject just yet. But on Saturday, March the 22nd, we are going to be at the Minnesota Aquarium Society Expo. And from everything I've heard, it is very cool, and it's in like a science place. I haven't.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're gonna be in your element.
there-
I'm
it's
not
a
going to be in my
swap,
element.
It's presentations. It is going to be a 1 day of awesomeness. So if you are capable of getting up to the Minnesota area in March 22nd, highly recommend it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be there. I'll have a presentation to do. I think it's going to be cool. So those are all the places that we are going to be over the next coming months. And if you got here a little bit late, we do have a giveaway tonight, and I think it's going to be cool. We do have a subject that I want to talk about as well, because that's going to be great, I think. So anything you want to say?
Lefty's here.
What's up? Glad you're here.
Hey, Lefty.
Thank you to our moderators too. I see Whip is in the house.
Heck yeah.
And,
Oink.
Oink is in the house, and so is Noelle.
Noel. And do we have second floor in
I don't know.
the house? Maybe not yet.
I haven't been able to go through all of the chat thing because it was moving kind of fast. So
But Gravedigger Aquatics is maybe he's gonna be next to us too. I said stop by and say hi to him too.
cool.
Usually he's right next to us.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yep, very cool. So tonight we are going to be talking about 5 ways that you could potentially really mess up your aquarium. And these, like I said, full discretion. I have messed up my aquarium doing all 5 of these things more than one time.
Full disclosure?
Full disclosure.
You said discretion.
Full discretion. Discretion is advised on my full disclosure.
There we go. Love it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I like to just throw words around sometimes. Yep. I remember when I was a freshman in high school, we had to learn how to spell anti-disestablishmentarianism. It was like 27 letters long, and
That's
it was
fun.
very traumatic at first, and then we figured it out and made us feel smart. So, 5 ways you can mess up your aquarium. I would love to hear from you in the chat. People, write in the chat ways that you can totally mess up your aquarium. I think that would be fun.
That is fun.
Because I am sure people have messed up their aquarium in more than 5 ways. And in fact, this is not an exhaustive list, because I can honestly say I have messed up my aquarium probably in dozens of different ways. These, I think, are just the 5 most common.
Ted says just 5. I've done more.
Yeah, I have 2. Yeah. Full discretion. I've done. Yes, I have done more as well. Okay. Now, thing number 1, not quarantining fish.
Sure.
That is a great way to totally jack up an aquarium.
Yeah.
By the way, I've got videos in the description of ways not to mess up your aquarium, so quarantining fish and some of the other stuff that we're about to talk about. So if you want to learn how to do these things properly in a more detailed way, check out the description of the video of this live stream. There's some videos there for you. So not quarantining. How many of you have done that before? And some of us, we get really comfortable. I've done it. I remember I was constantly buying fish from our swaps. And when I would go to fish meetings and getting the breeder award points fish where they were small, and I didn't have problems for years and years. And so I started to get very comfortable with the idea of not quarantining my fish, because I'm getting them from the swaps or I'm getting them from a breeder. They're going to be fine. And they were for at least a couple years until it wasn't fine. And then I had a major outbreak of ick
Yeah.
in a 125. That was not cool.
Good times.
So not quarantining fish, I think, is probably one of the main ways you're going to mess up your tank. So not only are you going to have fish that you just got in or that you just bought that are going to be sick, and so now you're struggling with trying to keep those alive, they have the added benefit, and you get the added pleasure of having those now sick fish contaminate the rest of your fish and pass on disease to them as well. But then, oh wait, there's more. The best part about this is instead of just being able to treat your new fish in a 10-gallon quarantine tank, now you get to treat your 20-gallon or 29-gallon or 6-foot tank like I had to do with a 125 or a 75-gallon. Instead of having to use very little medication, now you're using a lot of medication. And so now you've made this really expensive because you're treating a lot more water volume. There's a lot more sick fish now. Oh, and if maybe you've got invertebrates or you've got plants in your tank, now that limits what you can do. You're going to have to worry about salt. You're going to have to worry about temperatures a little bit more, not stressing out all the other fish. And so it's just so much easier. You have a quarantine tank set aside, a 10-gallon, maybe have some cycled filter media. Maybe it's a sponge that's sitting in the back of a hang-on back filter that you can just slap into a sponge filter later on. Or you've got a small hang-on back where you can just take filter floss from a tank that's already existing, throw that in the back of the hang-on back. You're ready to go. And it's going to save you a million problems. And so don't do this. I know we run into good luck streaks. It's like when I was in my 20s. Do you remember what I was like in my 20s?
I didn't know you.
My
Barely. I knew you in your 20s.
You knew me for half my 20s.
It wasn't half.
I didn't know you for much of your 20s, but you knew me for a lot of my 20s.
Did you know me
She's
for
older
any
than
of
me.
my 20s?
Yes.
Yes, I am older and wiser.
Yes, just a couple. Well, I mean, we started dating when you were just a couple months away from not 20s. But I, in the meantime, was
That's
in
right.
my mid-20s.
I was a little alarmed. I was like,
But the point
how
is
old?
not to disclose all of that information. The point is, when I was in my 20s, I used to brag about how awesome my immune system was. I even had a name for my immune system. I don't remember what the name was, but I named my immune system. I never got sick for years. That all ended in my 30s, and especially when I started having kids. And so even if you have, the point is, even if you have really good luck with not quarantining your fish, trust me, just do it. It's going to save you all kinds of problems. It's going to save you a ton of money. It's going to save your wonderful existing fish from getting sick, and you're going to have a lot less stress in the hobby if you quarantine your fish. Not only that, but be really careful about the equipment that you use in the quarantine process. And so if you're using any gravel vacs or any nets, don't put those into your existing aquariums either, because that can pass disease as well. And trust me when I tell you, we have got to do a lot of quarantining with all the fish that we bring in, like for the swap, the Quad City swap or the GCCA swap that's coming up, or green water. We got to get these fish in weeks and weeks ahead of time, 4 weeks ahead of time, make sure that they're healthy. So do a 4-week quarantine. It'll save you a lot of problems. Okay. Anything you'd like to add?
no.
Any ways that you mess up your aquarium?
Oh, heck yeah.
Can you share with the class?
Well, do you want like one example or like the top two that
No,
immediately?
one is good. One is good.
I once, and this was included in a video shortly thereafter. I think it might have been a lot of these mistakes inspire videos. Never feed your fish like directly from the container. You know, just sprinkle a little, because it doesn't work like that. It just...
How many? I laugh, but how many of you have done this? I've done it. Now, that's not one of my 5. It's not in my top 5.
It should be. Oh,
It
that's classic.
Probably should be. How many of you have done it? Just admit it. You open up and you're just like, and you see that all the
Just
time
a
in like
little.
the movies and
I
stuff.
would be
where,
careful.
You know,
Yeah.
especially back in the
Sprinkle.
80s and 90s, they just kind of
They
sprinkle it
used
right
to,
out of the
They
thing.
used to have sprinkle cans, didn't they?
Not for flakes.
No?
Well, how's a flake going to get through the sprinkle can? Maybe for little pellets. They did for pellets.
No. Well, think of chili, cook. Chili flakes. It's a shaker. It's a bigger
Yeah,
shaker.
but I don't remember. I don't
All
recall
right.
them
Do you
doing that for
remember back
flakes.
in the day? Come on, all of us old people. Do you remember shaker cans for flakes? That's the only way I remember. And I only had one fish when I was wee little. And I remember.
I remember
unless-
you could either open up or you had like a little half moon shape, but I don't remember there being like grating for not for flakes,
Oh.
for pellets there were.
Maybe it was the half
Unless
moon.
I am misremembering. But anyway, yeah, that's a good one. Don't just shake food directly
See?
from.
Look. Kat remembers. Todd.
Okay.
Yes. Zeus Leah.
Maybe there was a certain brand that I just didn't use.
You didn't use the cool brand.
I guess I didn't use the cool brand. So, yeah, that's a really good piece of advice.
Wait, Kevin says 2-year-old visitor dumped a container of pellets in my shrimp colony.
So that would be another great piece of advice, ways you can mess up your tank. Don't let little children near the fish food and really near any part of the tank that they can hang on or
remember one of the worst catastrophes I ever heard of? The gentleman at the GCCA, the Goodyear guy.
Andrew, yeah.
Yes, Andrew had somebody
Feeding his fish, and he had
all of his
whole
tanks.
bunch. I did a fish room tour. Andrew Pierkowski, I did a fish room tour of his fish room. He had some really rare fish, a lot of endangered fish came home, and most of them were no longer with him by the time he got home. Very sad.
Very sad.
All right, number 2, for me, also very huge. I would be willing to bet most of you have figured this out, and I would be willing to bet that most of you who are helping new fish keepers really try to stress this to them, and that is, what are you doing?
There was a stray here that was like bothering me.
Make sure your tank is ready for fish. Don't add them too soon. Make sure your tank is cycled. And what that means is that we have the beneficial bacteria in the aquarium ready to do the nitrification process, to convert ammonia to nitrite and nitrite to nitrate. It's really important. And I would say for new fish keepers, it almost seems like when new fish keepers get into the hobby and they don't know anything and they don't watch any videos, they don't prepare, it's inevitable. They're going to get fish that have ick, and it's going to be made a whole lot worse because they're going to have an uncycled tank with an ammonia spike within 2 or 3 weeks, and then a nitrite spike, and then you got sick fish, you're trying to do the meds, and it's making the cycle impossible anyway because the meds would damage the cycle in the first place, and it's just this whole tornado of horribleness. And then they're like, this fish keeping stuff is impossible. But if you get the quarantine thing right and you get the cycling thing right, you're in good shape. Now, there's a few different ways you can do this. Way number 1, you can use a product, something like this. This is Fritzzyme 7. Fritz is a channel sponsor because they have awesome stuff, and this is one of the awesome things that they have. This is live nitrifying bacteria, so you don't have to wait. I don't know really why people even bother anymore. Like, oh, I'm waiting for my tank to cycle for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. Completely and 100% unnecessary, because when you add this and a small number of fish, I've never had an ammonia spike. We've used it dozens and dozens of times. This is really, really good stuff. So Fritzzyme 7, live nitrifying bacteria. Now, for those of you who have access to or already have tanks up and running, you've got cycled media. And so if the media has been in an aquarium for, I would say at least 4 weeks, you can take out a sponge, you can take out filter floss, put it in your brand new filter, in your brand new tank, and again, you can add a small number of fish right away. Adding live plants will certainly help. They'll help reduce ammonia, help reduce nitrite, consume nitrate. And so you use those things in combination, especially the cycled filter media, especially this stuff here. If you don't have it, you're going to avoid that problem. But oh my gosh, I remember back, because even back in like the 90s and early 00s, it wasn't completely obvious that these things were necessary. And so you'd start up a new tank,
Yeah.
and you just wind up with the cloudy water from the ammonia spike. It was just something you dealt with. And so you just get hardy fish that would hopefully live through it. That's how you did it back in the 80s and 90s for sure. You got the Daniel, back when the Daniels were actually hardy and not like they are these days, but Daniels or like the Buenos Aires Tetra or Tiger Barbs or something. Remember? Well, not you wouldn't remember, but I remember. You just chuck them in a tank and hope for the best, and they'd make it through. And then once everything started to stabilize, you knew you could add a little bit more fish. And so, but nowadays, because we have the knowledge of nitrifying bacteria and the products and use filter media, and even for someone who's just starting up a tank, if you've got a friend or even a pet store sometimes will have a tank that hasn't had any disease in it, for the last 2 months, some of that beneficial bacteria from filter floss, boom, you're in good shape. By the way, and I did a video about this a couple years ago, I saw somebody that was selling basically fish mulm in a bag and shipping it. Remember that?
I saw it at the garden center too.
Oh my gosh, that is not, of all the options I just discussed, that is like a distant number 4 thing to do, because one, you have no idea what the condition of those aquariums were like, that where that fish mulm came from. 2, a lot of it, almost all of it, is going to be dead by the time it gets shipped from wherever it was originated to your house, because those beneficial bacteria need a lot of oxygen. And the likelihood that they're even going to survive that is, some will, but it's not a great way to do it. It's a good way to introduce potential parasites and stuff to your tank, though. So that's my second thing.
Sure.
Do you have a third? Or do you have another one? Because you said you had a couple.
I do. Oh, once I over gravel vacked a tank with crypts. I mean, I don't know what I was doing. I was gravel backing all right by the roots of the, and you know, crypt roots, like,
Yeah. Well,
it angered them, something fierce,
so did you kill them all?
kind of.
Kind of. All right. So I wouldn't say that was catastrophic.
I
You
would.
stressed out your crypts.
No, I mean, it was a beautiful, lush-looking tank, and then, so even, I mean, if you're talking a couple months, 3 months for them to grow back, I messed up
It
my
was
tank.
bad. Okay.
Yeah.
You did mess up your tank.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can't believe you did that.
Thank you.
Number 3, and it actually kind of goes along with what you're saying, but it's the opposite. One way you can mess up your tank and just make it look really horrible
Yeah.
is by not controlling your nitrate concentrations, which you were attempting to do, by the way. Congratulations. You just overdid it.
I did.
So the reason why it's so important to control nitrate, it's not nearly as toxic as ammonia or nitrite. That is definitely true. However, it is still toxic to fish in high enough concentrations. It still stresses them out. It still weakens their immune system. And it's going to make your tank look horrible. You're going to be a lot more prone to all kinds of algae growth,
Sure.
to green water problems.
Love it.
And so if you are not properly controlling nitrate, which is usually done by doing water changes. And so that's why we do the water changes, is to control nitrate concentrations. I like to keep ours at around 20 parts per million or less. In pretty much all of our tanks, if they're planted tanks, I'll let it go a few parts per million higher. But once those nitrate concentrations get elevated and stay that way, it's food for algae. And so you're going to wind up fighting algae constantly. Blackbeard algae, green hair algae, the soft types of algae, the hard crusty types, what else? Diatom algae. There's all different types. I did a whole video on how to deal with algae, but the point is, it's a simple thing. But sometimes time gets away from us all. We look at an aquarium, we're like, it doesn't need a water change this week. Everything looks good. Next thing you know, 1 week turns into 2, turns into 3, and you're like, oh man, what is going on with this thing? Maybe the water starts to cloud up, fish start to get a little, well, not as energetic, they're not eating as much. And so it's a really great way to mess up your tank. And it's unlike the other two that I talked about, not quarantining fish, you wind up with fish that are in trouble right away. When you don't have a cycle tank, you wind up with fish that are in trouble pretty quickly. When you're not keeping up with water changes, it's something where it can sneak up on you. And one day you're like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden my fish aren't doing well. They seem to be gasping for air. They seem to be irritated. They're not eating as well. They're losing color. I'm getting all this algae. What is going on? And then you realize, wow, you know, I am not doing the water changes that I should have been doing. Now, there's other ways around that. I don't have lots of plants. Like you see in the background of our live stream tonight, if you got a whole bunch of plants, they're going to lower nitrate concentrations, and it's going to allow you to do less frequent water changes or water changes of less volume. So that is certainly a way to alleviate part of that problem. And in some of our planted tanks, the tanks don't need nearly as much in terms of water changes, or if we skip a week, it's really not the end of the world. Do you have another one you want to talk about, or are you out?
Oh, yeah.
Oh
no, I'm not out.
Wow. Okay.
Go on forever. Well, you basically addressed it a number of times. When I switched up the lighting in my tank in the kitchen and got a little bit of algae, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to get to it. And then I got a lot of algae, and then, you know, when algae moves in,
It can be a little tough to move back out.
a little bit. Unless you got the super crew, which I did. I
The
hired.
Amanos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hired them.
They'll do that for you.
Heck yeah, they
Yeah,
will.
They will do it. Okay. Number 4, I guess it would be.
You're welcome.
And you kind of addressed this already.
Yeah.
Not controlling lighting,
Yeah.
right? So either having your lights on too long or just having a light that's way too much. It's too strong for the tank that you have. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you had a 75 gallon or a 55 gallon. You get a 4-foot light. And it's a beams work. It's a cheap light, but it's super, super bright. And in that 75 gallon, it works out pretty well. Same thing with the 55 gallon because it's a tall tank. But then, even though they really don't make them anymore, you have a 33 long that's only 12 inches tall. And you put that exact same light on there because it's the same length and same width. And all of a sudden, you start winding up with all kinds of algae issues. Well, what you have is a light that is really, really bright. And so I always recommend 2 things. 1, try to find a light, if you can, if your budget will allow, where you can adjust the light intensity. Believe it or not, there are lights out there that are relatively inexpensive that will allow you to do that. The Hygger lights. It's not super high tech. It's not like these AIs, blades, and primes that we have back here, but it's got a little button and you can just click, 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 and it will just kind of dim the lights until you have a setting. And those lights will actually remember the setting if they're on an external timer, which is pretty cool. That's another thing. If you get a light where you can adjust the intensity by clicking and you have it on an external timer, not all lights will remember your settings, but those ones did. These ones behind me, the AI Prime, which is the light on the low boy, the AI blades are on the other tanks. Those ones you can set percentages of different colors. You can set the intensity. You can easily set the duration to come on and off when you want them to. You can adjust it fairly easily. And so obviously the lights, these ones, the Fluval 3.0s, the Kessel lights, well, not really the Kessel lights. I'm going to take that back because the Kessel lights we have, you can adjust the intensity, but it's more rudimentary than these AI primes and they cost a lot more. But anyway, so definitely look at lights. Don't replace the lights you have if you have no problems. But if you're looking at new lights at some point, being able to adjust the intensity, to me, I won't even entertain a light where I can't do that. And again, they're not usually expensive. The next thing is the duration. And this one gets a little tricky because it really depends on your plants. And same thing with the light intensity, right? It depends on the plants that you have.
Absolutely.
For us, generally speaking, we're running our lights when we're most likely going to be around the fish. And so in the mornings, they come on at, hold on, let me think this through, 6, I think it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and they shut off at 9:30 in the morning. Most of that's just for feeding. But at night, they come on around 4 o'clock, and they shut off at 10:30. So we're right around, from what I can remember, like 9.5 hours a day. For us, that works out really well because we're managing our nitrate concentrations, like I already talked about, by doing our water changes or having heavily planted tanks. We don't really struggle with algae all that much. For you, it might be different. Maybe you've got an unplanted tank and it's a light that's pretty intense. Well, in that case, maybe you just don't want to have as much in terms of the duration. But I have found that for the most part, that 9.5 hours, but split up into different times, seems to work out pretty well. And I know it. Sometimes the boys will come down here, they'll do the tanks, and they usually come down during the day when the lights normally aren't on. They'll flip all the timers from the timer position to the on position. And it happens, I wouldn't say frequently, but at least once a month. They forget to put the timers back into timer mode, which means the fish have been up for 48, by the time I catch it, maybe 48, 72 hours straight. The lights have been blasting, and inevitably we wind up with algae that has to be dealt with that week. Which brings up another point. A lot of people think, oh, it's algae that's going to be the primary problem when you leave the lights on way too long. Yes, but there's another issue. It really stresses out your fish. If your fish cannot go night-night because the lights have been left on 24/7 for multiple days, I promise you, you will see it. A lot of times that's how I notice it at first, because I'll come down here to feed, because sometimes I'm only down here when the lights are on, when they're supposed to be on, and I'll be like, man, they're really not eating all that well. They look lethargic. And then I go and I check the timers. I'm like, that's why, because half of them are trying to sleep with the lights on. They don't know what time of day it is. They're exhausted. They just want some downtime. And it can really stress out your fish. So just be careful with that. It can also cloud up your water, right? Whether it's green water or just regular, because of the increase in nitrate concentration. You got all kinds of imbalances going on there. So it can be a real problem. Do you have one you want to add, or do you want me to finish this up?
You can wrap it up.
Okay, last one for me. This is another sneaky one. This is one I can guarantee you some of you are bad at. I'm bad at it with the tanks back here. So again, just want to state right from the top, I'm bad at this. And that with these filters, not maintaining them as frequently as I should. And I say these filters because they're canister filters, and I just tend to block them out of my mind. And quite frankly, I dread having to actually clean them. Although it's not completely true, because 3 of them, the 2 125s and this 50-gallon low boy behind me, are those Owaza Biomaster thermos. They have a pre-filter. which makes cleaning the canister way, way easier because that pre-filter catches like 95% of the gunk.
Yeah.
The other day, I cleaned all 3 of these canister filters in maybe 15 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. It was awesome because all I had to do was unplug them, stop the water flow, take that thing off, rinse it out, put it back in, boom.
Back in business.
I was back in business, and so were the filters. So, but normal canister filters, you just let them go, and you let them go. And all of a sudden, your tank's looking bad. You're like, man, there's a lot of stuff floating around in here. That's usually when I change media in the canister filter, or think about cleaning. It's like, man, you know, the tank is not looking so good. There's stuff floating around everywhere. Time to maybe look at the media in the canister filter. But that can happen with hang-on backs. I've seen lots of people brag about, I haven't cleaned my sponge filter in 3 years. Now, here's what's happening. In all cases, it doesn't matter what filter type you have. If you are not cleaning them, and they are all gunked up, full of detritus and fish waste and food and boo-boos,
Etc. Etc.
etc., they are a nitrate breeding factory because it's all kinds of organic compounds. And your water quality is going to suffer. And now you're going to start getting algae, even if you're doing the water changes, because you've got these filters that are just a nitrate factory. And so you got to be really careful when you have these filters that are completely gunked up. All it is just creating problems for you. The second issue that it's causing, that a lot of people don't appreciate, is the beneficial bacteria that you have in your aquarium. They're aerobic, just like you are. They need oxygen. They need to breathe. These microbes will connect to the surfaces of your filter media, but they cannot connect to organic compounds. And so what happens is it would be like if you put somebody in the ground and started just piling a bunch of dirt on top of them. How's that going to work out? It's the same thing happening to your bacteria. They suffocate, they die. And so now what you've done is you've compromised your filter media's ability to process the ammonia into nitrite and nitrite into nitrate. And so you're a lot more susceptible potentially to ammonia spikes because your filter media is all gunked up. So bottom line, it's a great way to mess up your aquarium. You're getting a lot more nitrate. You're going to have a less rigorous or less concentrated amount of bacteria. And so now you're going to be susceptible to other water quality issues as well. So just be really careful with your filter media. Take care of your filters. Do it like for us. So in the fish room, again, I've done videos on this. I've done a science series. I've shown people the actual scientific literature. We take all of our sponge filters, and I'm not saying just go ahead and do this right now, but we take all of our sponge filters, in the sink they go, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze for about, 10 seconds, boom, right back in the aquarium they go. The chlorinated tap water doesn't do anything because our sponge filters are maintained every single week. So they don't have a chance to get super, super nasty. Now, if they were super, super nasty and I hadn't cleaned them in 3 months, I might not take them over to the sink and then spend 5 or 10 minutes trying to squeeze them out there because then, yeah, that chlorinated water is going to potentially destroy some beneficial bacteria. But for us, because we do it every week, it literally is like 5-10 seconds of squeeze, 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 get the brown stuff out, boom, right back in the tank they go. Same thing with our hang-on back filter media. Same thing with the canister filter media, all the sponges and stuff, boom, right in the sink they go. So it also helps because now that filter media can actually capture the gunk in the tank, right? So you don't have all that stuff floating around. That's why we can use sponge filters and actually have a decent amount of mechanical filtration because we've got these ATIs where they've got the nice fine pores. It gets trapped in here. We take this to the sink, squeeze, 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 slap it together, back in the tank it goes, and now it's capable of capturing a bunch more of that detritus that's floating around in the water. So that, my dear friends, was my 5 ways, your couple ways of things that can mess up a tank. One more, I'm going to give you a bonus. The bonus one is don't let little kids who have access to a pool table get into a fight and throw the pool balls around an aquarium.
What? Don't
do that.
When did that happen?
When I was a little kid. So I was down in the basement with my little brother. I was probably 6, 7 years old. So my brother would have been 3 or 4. And we got into an argument. He got mad at me. We were right by the pool table. In fact, I think it was because we were playing pool. Maybe I don't know, somebody lost. I don't remember. I was 6 years old, maybe 7. He took a pool ball, right, from a pool table, those hard things.
It's really dangerous.
On many levels, this is messed up. I get this. He takes it and throws it at me. Me being the ninja that I was at like 6 or 7 years old, I got out of the way. Unfortunately, I was standing right in front of our 10-gallon fish tank. Pool ball hits aquarium, front glass shatters, water, fish everywhere. Mom upstairs, I'll never forget it, screaming, "What was that?" She comes running downstairs. She's like, "Oh my gosh, there's fish flopping everywhere." She's like, "Run upstairs and grab a pitcher," but there's also broken glass everywhere.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I run upstairs, I grab a Tupperware pitcher that was like this big. It was orange. I remember. Yeah, it was the 1970s, 80s. You know, it was
It's gonna
orange
be orange,
pitcher.
green, or gold.
Yeah, it's about 1.5 inches thick because those old Tupperware pitchers, man, they lasted forever. It's probably still around somewhere.
Was it filled with Kool-Aid?
No, this one was empty because otherwise this wouldn't have worked out so well. So
Well,
I
you
ran
dumped the Kool-Aid.
downstairs. I filled it with water, which was tap water, which was bad. And we put all the fish in the Tupperware pitcher.
Okay.
And then my mom cleaned up all the mess. And then the worst part of this story is when my dad came home.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Didn't go so well?
Remember, this is the 70s or 80s. It was,
No comment.
I think I still am having problems sitting down for that one.
What, who did the actual cleanup of the glass, though?
My mom
Was
did.
it Mom?
Yeah, I kind of
It's the
helped
mom.
because she
Yeah.
made us go put, I remember she's like, "Go put gym shoes on."
Yeah.
And then we were picking up all the flopping fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Did the fish make it? I mean, where you put them after the pitcher?
We got another tank.
Like-
so,
Okay.
but it wasn't like a joyous experience because pretty
No.
much, you know, when you break a tank and your dad's like having to run out and grab a 10-gallon, no, not a good thing.
New tank, yay!
All right. So on that happy note,
No, not really.
I think we should do our
Oh,
giveaway.
man.
What do you think? What do you all think? Is it time for the
Yeah.
giveaway?
And
All
hello
right,
to
so-
second floor.
What's up? What's up?
Second floor is in the house.
Oh, you know what? And hold on a
And
second here.
Weren't there some memberships?
Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you very much, Dennis, for gifting the 5 Prime Timer memberships.
That's
Really
so
appreciate
nice.
that. That was awesome. Thank you for doing that. Okay, so tonight's giveaway is, we got a few things to a single winner. I'm going to start small. I'm going to go big. Okay. So thing number 1. This is all you're getting. Okay. So this is one thing. It's a North Fin night for us, but it gets more exciting as we go. So this is a package of Krill Pro pellets, and these are 1 mil pellets, so they're pretty small. Love North Fin. As you know, North Fin is the only food that we feed. It's been the only food that we feed for many, many years at this point, a number of years. And the reason why is because they've got the highest level of ingredients, the highest quality ingredients on the market. And so that means something to us. And so this is the krill pellet. This is a great pellet. It sinks. Everything eats this. People always ask what eats, you know, even if it's a sinking pellet, you're still going to have your guppies, your plecos, your cory cats, all of your loaches, your shrimp. We feed this to our shrimp. Your snails are going to eat this stuff. So any fish that will take food off the bottom are going to eat these. And they're pretty small. 1 mil pellet is a pretty tiny pellet. Krill is a great way to enhance color in your fish because it's got some of those carotenoids and stuff that are going to help your fish get a little bit brighter in color. So that's thing number 1. Next thing, you're going to get some nanobits. These are really great. Now, these are 1/2 mil, so these are very tiny pellets. So for those of you who have got some juvenile fish, maybe you're breeding, again, a lot of your live bears, your endlers, that kind of thing, your cory cats, your smaller loaches are still going to love this stuff, as will your shrimp and your snails and your bristlenose, plecos, and your otos. This is a really, really good food. And again, it's tiny. And so again, packed with awesome ingredients. When you're never going to be able to see this. In fact, with my glasses off, I can't read it, but I don't need to because I'll know that the first ingredients on this list is actually going to be actual real fish meal and not just some kind of filler. Yes?
Can I interrupt? This
You sure
is
can.
very, very important. This is from KG Tropicals, and it says, "Watch me giggle when Joanna reads this comment." Remember John? He said that he laughs every time that I read his comment for whatever reason. Probably because, like, I'm a superstar.
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 Shirley, thank you so much for the little sticker. Really appreciate
Oh,
it.
look at
Thank
him.
you.
Doing
Now,
a little
this last
snap.
part of the giveaway is, to me, it's the most exciting part because it's new. Check this out. Northfin just came out with a Bug Pro stick. It's a 1 millimeter stick. They float for a short period of time and then they sink. But man, the Bug Pro stuff is awesome. I always recommend to people, if your fish are not eating, try this, because outside of this and like maybe some frozen bloodworms or some live baby brine, if they're small, if they're not eating it, there's something wrong with if they're not eating one of those 3 things. And so these are brand new. I just started using these a couple days ago. Absolutely love them. The fish are just devouring these just like they do the regular Bug Pro. So this is really cool. Like I said, it's a 1 mil. Really, really good stuff. And you look at the ingredients list and it's all bugs. So what fish really like to eat? Again,
Bugs.
I feed this stuff to everything. Snails, shrimp, all basically tetras, live bears, rasboras are eating it, the bigger ones because it's a 1 mil. You name it, pretty much everything is eating this. So one winner is going to get all of this awesomeness. That is what's going to happen. Now the winner, of course, has to live in the United States because that's where we ship to. And want to say thank you to, all right, I'm not going to mess this up. Homer, thank you very much for the little sticker guy. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for doing that.
Thumbs up.
Now, here's the dealio. Again, can I see that? Thank you very much.
Sure.
So one winner is going to get all this. You got to live in the continental United States. And what you have to do is you have to pick a number. But hold on. I got to tell you the number. And by the way, you're going to want to be on all messages, all chat. We got like 4 different screens here right now.
Not that yours is going to match ours.
Might make it better.
Yeah.
The person who's going to win needs to pick the right number between 50 and 60. Feel free to go ahead. The first person who gets the number, and I know I got to update this situation at some point, between 50 and 60. I think we are we done? Yeah, we're done. Oh yeah, we're definitely done.
We're done?
Yeah, can I see that again? It happened pretty quick. Yeah, check it out right here.
Hold on, I gotta look. I look at mine first. I don't look at yours first.
Now we have to do our many screen confirmation.
Oh yeah.
So are we?
Wait, who
are
do
we
you
here?
have? Yes.
All right, hold on.
And I'm gonna do my discount double check.
Yeah. Well, I gotta check my other
screen.
screen too.
Whip 47.
So, I mentioned at some point I will get a different way to do this. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Been really busy, but at some point that's on my list of things to do in 2025. I'm not saying it's going to happen now, or even next month, but at some point we'll have a different method for the giveaways. All right. So the number, go ahead and show it, is number 58, and that is Tank Commander. Pretty cool name. Tank Commander.
Very cool name.
What you need to do is you need to send us an email.
Yes.
And that email is Prime Time Giveaway,
singular,
in all one word, Prime Time Giveaway at yahoo.com. Send us your actual name and your mailing address, and we will ship all this stuff out in the next week or so.
Yeah.
So congratulations. We will have probably giveaways the next 2 weeks because I have Fritz stuff because they're a channel sponsor, and Flip Aquatics. We just discussed because we have a quarterly meeting about the cool stuff, and so I'm excited. Yeah, Leather, who I talked to
She's
about
the coolest.
She is cool, and she let me be a decider
really?
this quarter. Yeah,
lucky.
She's like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, let me tell you some things. Northfin, look at that, Northfin Red IQ. Thank you so much for gifting 10 Prime Timers new memberships. Really appreciate it. You got some awesome stuff here, and this, by the way, this is not the only new thing that they released. So there are some other products, so it would be a really good idea to check out their website and see what else they've released. They released some really cool color enhancing foods as well that I'm kind of just getting into feeding because I just got these things a few days ago, so that's pretty exciting. And here's what I'm really excited about. We, on the Tank Talk podcast, we are going to be interviewing Darius, who is the owner of Northfin, and so we're going to actually get to talk about
that's cool.
how it's made, how this stuff is, we're going to get into the ingredients and why they matter, and so I'm super excited about that because we get to nerd out a little bit about fish food, and so I'm going to learn some things. Hopefully you will too. So if you're not subscribed to the Tank Talk podcast, that would be a really good reason to do that because I think that conversation is going to be pretty darn awesome. I'm looking forward to it quite a bit.
I think this is Joey right before the numbers, so the comment's gone. But was it you, Joey, said that you just watched the live stream and we look different? Like we're different now. So maybe you were watching a different live stream? Were you watching the podcast with John and that guy?
You look a lot different, yeah. You were a guy and you were bald.
Or
Yeah.
John and Lisa, KG Tropicals.
That's
Maybe.
probably what happened. Yeah.
They're like the better versions of us.
Oh, yeah, right here. How can they look way different now when
now?
I just watched it
Live 10 minutes ago? Unless the live was like from
No, man.
3-4 years ago, then we
Just look a
everything
lot
would have
older.
looked different.
I don't know.
Probably.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious now.
I know. So anyway, by the way, now is a great time. If you've got questions, we will absolutely try to answer as much as we got. Jeff says, what podcast? It's called the Tank Talk Podcast. We're on YouTube, Spotify, all the places. But if you go to YouTube, the Tank Talk Podcast, man, we do some really in-depth stuff. So interviewing Darius he's the owner of Northfin, all these awesome foods. So it's going to be cool. That will be, I don't know exactly when that will release. We're recording it tomorrow, but we record in big old batches of live. And we've got some awesome guests coming. He's not the only one. We've got some other people lined up. I have been talking to, and so has John. We've got, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 8 people lined up that, and quite frankly, these are a lot of people you have not heard of before, because what we're trying to do is bring in people who are an expert in some area, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So, oh yeah, it's going to be awesome.
So I think Joey said he was watching John and his wife. So that's John and Lisa on KG Tropicals
I
that
think
you were
he
probably
might have just been
watching.
messing with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm just saying.
I saw
it's
a
an
question.
option.
What foods does Northfin have that sink fast for Cory cats? Most of the pellets sink relatively fast. So for Cory cats, you're really looking at like a 1 mil pellet. So the community, I feed the cichlid pellets, I rotate them. So the pellets, I rotate community, I will rotate krill pellets, I will rotate the cichlid pellet. The Bug Pro sinks, these bug sticks will sink. So all of them will sink. The 1 mil pellets will sink a little faster than the Bug Pro sticks. I actually like the fact that the Bug Pro sticks seem to stay at the surface of the water a little bit more than the Bug Pro pellet does. So if I've got fish that will feed from the surface, they're getting a little bit more time to do that.
Those are the foods that you're suggesting for guppies?
For Cory cats.
What about for guppies?
All the same. All the same. Yeah.
Okay.
And all the flakes,
Flakes.
right? Yeah, I mean,
and
by the way,
do
the Cory
flakes.
cats eat all the flakes too. And the flakes from Northfin, they sink a little bit faster than like a lot of the cheaper flakes do, because they don't have all those fillers, they don't have all those binders. So they do float for quite some time, but they will also sink a little faster than some of those other ones will. Yeah, I rotate that stuff through pretty much all of our tanks. The kelp flakes are really, really good too, as is the veggie pellet. So, but the trick with the Cory cats and those smaller fish like guppies, the 1 mil to me, and the Bug Pro, which it might be, it's either a half or a 1 mil, but those are really good as well. Okay, let me see. Joey says, you guys were rating tanks with Kevin. Yeah, that was definitely John and Lisa. So that was KG Tropicals. We don't rate tanks.
Maybe because it led right into this one, so that could be confusing if you're on one.
That's true.
Right?
Oh, because that's
KG
why, Joey, because what KG does is he sends his viewers right to us. And you guys look different. We've heard that before. You wouldn't be the first person that's gotten us confused.
Right.
Okay, so.
Oh, and did I already tell you? I already forgot if I told you or not. Faye of the Fae wants hoodies.
Hoodies. I want a hoodie too.
Right?
Yeah,
so
we'll have to
maybe
talk
for
to
the
the person
fall, like late summer, should we like bring out hoodies
Yeah,
for like
small
the
number.
fall? Yeah.
We're talking about in 2025 with like the merch, because we haven't updated it in a while. We still
No.
have some on the website. It's still like $15 a shirt. So if you're looking for a
Yeah, I didn't take it off.
inexpensive shirt,
It's still $15 a shirt, whatever's left.
yeah, that's definitely a place to go, primetimeaquatics.com. But we're thinking about in 2025 doing very small runs of your creations, and a hoodie would be another one where it would just be get them while they're hot because they ain't going to be here long, sort of thing. Marine Josh says, do you do videos on breeding fish? I do a lot of videos. Pretty much all of my species profiles at the end have information about if you want to breed a particular fish, how to do that. So most definitely I have, and by the way, I do want to say, I want to apologize to M&C Aquatics. I don't know if M&C is here right now, but I think last week there might have been something that was missed, or I missed a super chat, or maybe it was a membership anniversary comment.
Oh,
we couldn't find
we
it
couldn't
last week,
find
so
it.
I'm gonna see if even
Yeah.
if you watch it on replay, you can always, if I missed something, you can always leave that comment in the actual comments section after the live stream, just so that we catch those things. Whip, thank you so much for being a prime timer the last 22 months plus a whole bunch of
22
years.
plus.
Yeah. Because
Poor
he
guy.
lost his account. Almost 2 years, you beautiful people have been keeping me in membership status. Thank you. Well, thank you very much
Yay.
for being here. Really appreciate it. And then, oh, this thing just jumped all over the place. BC, thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Your thoughts on pygmy sunfish in a 55 gallon with 2 female bristlenose, 14 cories, 3 harlequin rasboras, 6 turquoise rainbow fish? If so, how many would you recommend? Okay, pygmy sunfish. If for those of you who have never seen them before, they are amazing looking fish. They
Yes, they are.
really are. They're tiny, first of all. So they are, I would say, if you're familiar with like the scarlet baddis or like a pea puffer, around that
Small.
size. So very small fish, gonna max, I don't even know if they're gonna be an inch. I mean, the ones that we had, in fact, we had them in a 29 gallon for quite some time, and I don't know if they ever even got to an inch. What makes the pygmy sunfish so interesting is the fact that they get this deep dark blue, but they also get like this spangling like a Florida flagfish would, or a geophagus, but they're surrounded by this darker blue. Now, the downsides, and this is where I want to go with your question in a 55 gallon. Well, first of all, there's no downside to having a 55. They might be top 5 most shy fish I've ever kept. And I've kept them multiple times, and I've kept them in multiple setups, but they were extraordinarily shy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was one of those things, like, you know, some of those expensive plecos that you buy and you're like, yeah, I see it once every 6 months. It's not quite that bad because they don't necessarily hide in caves and stuff, but if there's structure in the tank, they love to hide. The other thing about the pygmy sunfish is I don't recall them ever eating prepared foods. I thought ours, and I don't want to be super strict on this point, but for us, I think we always had to feed them live baby brine. Was that true?
I don't know, because I had them in a little tank upstairs. We didn't bring up baby brine.
Did you though?
Yes.
Okay,
I
then
did.
that's a lie. Maybe I
did.
found them to come out when I fed them live baby brine a little bit more often. So to answer your question, in a 55 gallon, if you've got a ton of structure, a ton of plants, I'd throw a dozen in there. I don't think that'd be a problem at all. The fish that you have, the only concern is the rainbow fish, and it's not because I think the rainbow fish are going to bully them or even acknowledge their presence. I wonder if the rainbow fish will outcompete them for food, because they are very, very slow eaters, very methodical. So I wonder if that could be a potential problem.
Well, you just have to make sure food gets to the bottom, because pygmies will really just kind of.
But were they really scavenging at the bottom?
They
I
never.
don't remember them
Mine
doing that.
never really came out from under the plants.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So-
So I don't know. I don't think there's a compatibility issue in terms of things that are aggressive or not aggressive. I think maybe your issue, if there's going to be any issue there, it's just going to be whether or not they're getting enough food. And to me, yeah, would I try it? Yeah, I probably would. And if I find that they're just not coming out enough, or I'm worried about them eating, then I would make a change. And they're small, so you've got options. Oh, there's M&C. Glad you're here. All good. Need to get you and Joanna in one of our lives sometimes. Yeah, we'll check out our schedule. Glad you're here. Okay. Pound Puppy says, yeah, I heard they prefer live foods, maybe frozen brine. Yeah, again, are you sure we had them upstairs?
Yes, I'm positive. It was in my tank. It was in my little. Maybe it was a
Where?
5. It was a 5 gallon.
And where? Because I remember them being in the Nano Nook.
No. Upstairs, when I first took over the loft,
Okay, I believe
and
you.
the table was up against the closet wall,
Okay.
and I had it right in the middle, and that was right before.
She obviously remembers
and
this
I-
a lot more than I do.
And I almost brought this up for a tank catastrophe. That was the one where I tried to keep the substrate. No, I wanted to change the substrate.
And keep the
keep
fish
the
in.
fish in.
Yeah,
Didn't work well.
Yeah, that almost never works well. Anytime
It
somebody
just-
is thinking about changing out substrate, I just say,
No.
break the tank down.
Yeah.
Break it down. Keep all of your plants, your rocks, your wood in water. Keep an air stone going to keep that beneficial bacteria there. Get the filter media and the filter itself, if you can, or the filter media or sponge filters in water with an air stone to keep that going. But then get that substrate out, get the new stuff back in, fill everything back up as quick as you can. Alan, great question. Will fish meds crash a cycled sponge filter? Some will. Some are a lot harsher than others. Pretty much all of your antibiotics are going to do some damage. Copper Safe is going to kill a lot of beneficial bacteria. But then things like ICX, not as much. Some of the more natural remedies, which actually don't often work all that well, but maybe not as much. If you use like Myrcin Oxy, that's not as hard on beneficial bacteria. But definitely your Myrcin 1, Myrcin 2, Vamisol can be a little bit tough. Metronidazole, yeah.
While you're there, do Yinzer's Aquatics.
All right.
I can't find it on mine.
Hi guys, can you recommend a magazine I can subscribe to? I grew up getting magazines for fish. Oh yeah, there is the one. Do I have a copy? I don't. Why do I not have a copy?
You almost always do.
In the description of this video is the one and only Amazonas magazine. It's by far the best. I don't know how many more magazines are really out there anymore besides maybe Cichlid News and a couple others, which are good magazines as well. Cichlid News is great, but Amazonas is the pinnacle freshwater fish magazine. So if you check out the description, because we actually have a partnership worked out with them. They are awesome. Amazonas, the one and only. And Noelle, thank you. Thank you for being a prime timer the last 4 years. Just wanted to share, celebrating picking up my first ever Apistogramma Cockatoides Mega Orange.
So
stunning.
Exciting.
I'm so excited to see how they develop. That's cool. That is very cool. The Apistogramma,
oh yeah,
very rarely ever disappoint. And the Cockatoides with those nice big giant fins, especially the males, gonna be a stunning fish.
Yep. Oink.
Oink.
Hi, oink.
Have any of your glass cats ever created fry for you? I would love to try glass cat breeding. I cannot imagine how difficult the fry might be to see without lighting.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a really interesting point. I've never actually considered it. To the best of my knowledge, glass cats, generally speaking, will not breed in captivity. So I think there are some fish farms that might have been able to get them to breed using hormone injections and stuff like that. But I am not aware, and maybe some of you are, and I'm just ignorant to the fact, but I am not aware of anybody that has gotten them to breed in captivity. So I get them. They're in that 125 right behind Joanna's head, usually like directly in that area over there.
Yeah.
And we've got 7 of them in that 125 that we've had for years. Glass cats are awesome fish. Lynn says, who's going to be in Favenport on Sunday?
We're going to be right next door in Davenport.
She's so excited to get out of the house. She's going to a different town. Then she said Davenport. Yeah, Davenport, Iowa. That is going to be the Quad City Swap. It's a giant swap. I counted one time, or I counted 96 tables. Wow. So it's big. It's big. A lot of people,
one of the biggest of the year,
too. A lot of
too.
vendors. Yeah, and January is usually when the vendors bring their A game, because a lot of people get new aquariums and they're trying to fill them out, and all the vendors know that. So you get vendors that they're bringing it, in January and February swaps for sure.
Well, at least it'll be over 20 degrees as opposed to last year.
Oh my gosh.
Remember? Wasn't it that one?
Yeah, it was last January. It was it was a swap that happened this weekend, or it was whatever. The first swap in January for Davenport. That was when we had the extreme cold, where the temperature without a wind chill was like -10, and I'm still, we still packed up fish ready to go, and my truck, the windshield wiper cracked, and I'm like, I had to email the guy. I'm like, ooh, we're not going to be there. Plus, I didn't really want to drive 200 something miles across I-88 in Illinois, where it's just nothing but flatland, and this wind is just blowing all the snow everywhere.
With my sister.
Yeah, because I was going to take your sister with. Why weren't you going? Why was it just her and I? What were you? You must have been doing something.
Why wasn't I going?
I don't know. That's weird. But anyway, yeah, we weren't able to go. So it'll be nice that this time it's going to be not so freezing. So it should be a good day.
Good day.
Thank you so much for being a prime timer the last 10 months. I recently had to use Myrcin 2 in my tank. Now I have so much biofilm over everything in my tank. Is this normal? Yeah, because they're antibiotics, and they're going to disrupt the ecosystem to a certain extent. You're going to have problems with your beneficial bacteria, and maybe you had a very slight ammonia or nitrite spike that can create all kinds of different types of algae blooms and bacterial blooms. But usually after a week or two, things settle down. The biofilms just scrape it off the glass. And as long as your fish are eating and they are recovering, that's the main thing. I know. Whip. So that was the funniest part about it is I was like, okay, I can't go. Whip goes anyway, and he's probably just
crazy.
as far away from
Yeah.
Davenport as
How
I am.
long did it take him? Like twice
Oh, yeah, it
as
took him
long,
like
right?
all day to get there and back. And then when he gets there, there's like a third of the vendors because everybody else is like, I'm not going out there.
Right,
Because
forget it.
even with the fish, when
Yeah.
it's that stinking cold, it was going to be a high of like -10.
It was
the
awful.
high.
It was awful.
When we were going to leave, it was like -18 or something.
Yeah.
It's really hard to keep fit. Can you do something?
What?
Speaking about keeping fish warm, can you go get how we're going to accomplish that?
Oh,
Can you go do a show and tell real fast? I want to show you
Sure.
something that I'm kind of excited about it. Joanna's going to be back in a second. I got to show you, especially for those of you going to the swaps. I've been wanting to do this forever, and we finally did. Michelle says, I think that, oh, that's right, Michelle. The GCCA was the same day. And that one, we didn't go to either. Oh, because we were going to do, I don't remember. But you're right, yeah. There were 2 swaps the same day. Okay, hold on a second here. Let me, while Joanna is, now we can talk about her behind her back. What do you guys want to talk about? Should we talk about green neons and how like mid they are? Yeah. They're just, they're okay, but like out of the tetras, I mean, seriously, she did like a top 5 of the neon types a couple weeks ago, and she put the green neon #1. Why? Why would you do that? You've got the cardinal, I include the cardinal tetras in that. Even the regular neon with all that beautiful blue. You've got the diamond head neon. You've got, man, I'll tell you, she put the green neon #1. I don't know what's her problem, but you know what? Whatever. All right, so now, Grave Digger says, I sold out that day in 40 minutes. Yeah, because the people that went there, they were really, really, really ready to go. Yeah, so anyway, the green neon, oh my gosh, that is a horrible, don't ever buy green neons. Don't listen to her. She doesn't know what oh, hi, how are you?
First I was so excited. I started walking real fast because I heard green neons, and then you're like, don't ever buy them. And I was like, wait a second, I must be on the wrong.
Now the green neon brigade is out. Okay. Oh, do you want to show it? I mean,
No, go
it was
ahead.
actually my creation this time.
Yeah, I know.
So here's what we did. I'm excited about this. We got these giant sealable bags. They're insulated for people when they go to the swaps. They're going to be $15, and you're going to be able to put a ton of bags of fish in here. They're going to keep your fish nice and warm, and they've got this nice big giant handle, and you can rep the Primetime Aquatics logo. So yeah, it's big. It's
turned out
huge.
nice.
It's going to be lots of bags of fish. You can put lots of bags of fish in there. So I was kind of excited to bring those in and help people keep their fish warm, because I always see people there. So many are just carrying their fish around, or they got them in the little plastic bags, and then you're going outside, you're
tough.
going in your car, it's not
Yeah.
warmed up yet. That will hopefully help a lot of people keep fish.
Well, it's
We're-
good for groceries
yeah,
too.
good for
I'm gonna
groceries. Yeah,
have
you
to
can reuse it for groceries.
borrow a couple of these.
Yeah, they're huge. So yeah, $15, and we'll have them at the swaps starting on Sunday. We thought about trying to figure out if we can ship them, but Joanna's got to do some work there to see.
Yeah.
Because it's a $15 bag, and then if it's going to cost you $15 to ship it, that's not going to make any sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I
we will
have to
see.
have one. Second floor has to have one. That can probably be arranged.
All right.
I better drive one
for
out.
Schoolie. Oh, I want one. Dang borders. I know, right? Borders ruin everything. By the way, I don't know why that popped in my head. Anybody here from California, man, you are in our thoughts and
Yes.
prayers big
Oh,
time.
my
That is
goodness.
an absolute
Oh.
disaster that's happening out there on the West Coast, and I hope that they can figure that situation out sooner rather than later. So, definitely.
Yeah.
Jazzy, will they be on the website too? Yeah, we're trying to figure out if the shipping is going to make it a viable option, because I just don't know. We haven't really looked into it.
Barky Bee, right by the fire, are you?
Oh, please be careful, and man, don't mess with that stuff. And I know I can't even imagine. I can't imagine what that must be like right now. If you see
No.
that, there's just the helplessness, right? When you see
Yeah.
that coming your way,
Right.
and there's just nothing you can do about it. All right, let's see here. Leora says, Regarding 24-hour power outage, Jason, I can confirm that nitrifying bacteria goes dormant if it still has access to air, but doesn't die. Oh, yeah. I mean, you're going to have some beneficial bacteria well after 24 hours. I've always said if I've got a power outage, and I have a battery-powered air pump, I'm taking out my filter media, putting it in a filter bag. I'm going to hang it off the side of the tank, off the rim, close to the surface, and an air stone is going right underneath that, because the air stone is going to obviously cause surface agitation for gas exchange for the fish, but then because it's right there by the beneficial bacteria, they're doing well as well. So all that stuff will be coming out of a hang-on back, out of a canister filter. My sponge filters, again, if you've got a battery-powered air pump, then you can just power the sponge filter. But even there, I would take my sponge filter, take it off the plastic thing, and just float the filter closer to the surface, and maybe every once in a while just kind of turn it, because that top end is getting access to all the oxygen. So it's not as good as the flow through, but it helps. Marine Josh says, purchase a generator. It'll be the best thing you ever do. Yeah, if you've got a bunch of fish tanks, I agree. Jenna says, perhaps Primetime Aquatics could make it to more fishy events to sell them, or work with some clubs to sell them in bulk to alleviate shipping costs. Interesting idea, which also makes me wonder if we should be bringing them, if we still have them, to the Minnesota thing that we're going to, Minnesota Aquarium Society Expo in March.
Might as well have some.
Because there's a big swap going on there.
I can throw them out to the crowds, like they do with T-shirt cannons at the ballparks.
We did that one time when
we did.
was on the speaking circuit at Aqua Shell. Every once in a while, we'd bring a bunch of shirts and I'd chuck them out there. I think I hit somebody in the side of the face one time, so I didn't try to do that, but it just happened. It's almost as bad as a time when we were at almost like a Wednesday night Awana thing, and they were all playing kickball and dodgeball.
Oh yeah.
And a ball came my way, and we were in this giant gym, and I just kicked it. And I mean, I kicked this ball.
So glad I wasn't there.
And this ball went screaming across the gym. And as it started to go down, I see this kid, and he's running across the gym, and I'm like, oh no. And boom, this ball hit that kid in the side of the head. He went flying. And kids are resilient. He just popped right back up, looked around like, what planet am I on? What just happened? And it just kept running. And like nothing ever happened. I was like, oh, well, that's the last time I'm kicking those things as hard as I can. Oh, wait, I got a good one here. Joey, this is a great question. Are there any fish that eat duckweed? None. Duckweed will eat all of your fish. In fact,
will.
No, that's
it
not
attacks
true.
your fish.
Yeah, there are a ton of fish that eat duckweed. So, goldfish is a very obvious one. Most of your African cichlids from Lake Malawi, Lake Victoria, will eat duckweed. So your peacock cichlids, your Mbuna cichlids, your Lake Victorian cichlids will eat it. Now, if you're not a cichlid person, like I've got community tanks, no problem. Other cichlids, though, severums, most of your barbs, and I think that surprises a lot of people, but with the exception of maybe the cherry barb and the 8-banded barb, almost every barb that we have brought in where we had a ton of duckweed in our aquariums, the duckweed was gone within like a week. And so your melon barbs, snakeskin barbs, tinfoil barbs, bala sharks eat it too. I mean, those are bigger fish, the tinfoil barbs and bala sharks, but tiger barbs, most of your normal size rainbow fish, your Melatollania, they will eat them too. So your turquoise rainbows, yellows, red rainbows, they will all eat it. What else? I mean, there's quite a bit. There's a number of fish.
Hydrangea formosa.
No.
Once he did, remember? I had to.
Oh, you had a piece stuck in his mouth, but
he did. That was a funny story. I mean, not a funny story. I saved him. Everything was all right.
You did.
But
you were able to get, yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of fish out there that will eat them.
Monster duckweed shirt.
Monster
That's
duckweed.
funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, that would be interesting.
Yeah, the Faye.
Yeah, Finn chemist. Congo tetras. I could see that. And then Buenos Aires tetras. So here's a funny story. I had Buenos Aires tetras. I didn't order. I got a whole mess load of them in by mistake, and I didn't have anywhere to put them, so I threw them in our multi-shell dweller 50-gallon lowboy, and there was a ton of duckweed in there. There is not a speck of duckweed in that tank, and now I have them I have them in this tank right here with the Pseudotropheus solosi and the yellow labs. Great combination. There was no duckweed in there anyway because there's African cichlids in there, but they ate duckweed very, very quickly. So, yeah, lots of potential there. What's up, Ben? Glad you're here. Ben O'Chart's in the house.
Ah.
Blackfire Aquatics says maybe some killifish. I don't keep enough killifish to know. I'll take your word for it. Cat, my head Rihanna Formosa have never eaten duckweed.
Good.
They don't.
Because it was very alarming.
Nope. Rosie says, I caught your shirt at Aquashella. That's cool.
Oh,
I didn't hit you in the
cool.
face first, though, right? That wasn't that one. Because I did that in a number of different locations. And, Florida flagfish would be another one. Yep. Yeah. I learned where, if I'm going to chuck those shirts out there, just kind of underhand and I just kind of throw them up in the air and don't just be like a football. Because that can wind up bad. Not as bad as a dodgeball to the side of the head, but still, nonetheless. Hold on a second here. I've got to scroll around. Donald, thank you so much for becoming a prime timer. Really appreciate you hanging out with us. And same thing with the Z-Man. Thank you very much for being a prime timer. That's awesome. Thank you. Because I've got all these different screens, and some screens do better at certain things than others. So that's why sometimes if I'm looking at the same one big giant screen over here, I miss stuff every once in a while. Kat says, I wish any of my fish ate duckweed. Yeah, I know. It can be a pain. I don't fear the duckweed. I mean, to me, it's just a maintenance thing where we're taking that.
That's a shirt I would do. Fear the duckweed. I would do that.
Don't fear duckweed.
No, I would say fear the duckweed.
You know what we should get? What would be cool? You know how people wear those arm sleeves?
That's what I've always wanted to do.
We do arm sleeves and it's just
Yeah.
got duckweed all over
Yeah.
it. The other day I was down here. I don't remember what I was doing, but I put my hand in a tank. It got covered in duckweed. Then I forgot because I was
I know.
like, my
I
hand
always
was
do
still
that.
wet. And I just kind of flung off the water. And then I was like going like this or something. And I'm like, what is it?
What
I had
is
duckweed in my
everywhere?
beard because I had
Yeah.
duckweed all over my hand. I forgot to rinse off. Yeah,
It's a sign of a true fish keeper. You just
Yeah.
don't care.
I know. Brent, great question. Are sparkling gouramis fairly easy to keep?
They're
I
adorable.
would say they are.
Yes.
But the big thing with the
You'll
sparkling
love 'em.
gourami is make sure that they are in an aquarium that's not too small. If you're going to keep more than one, right? You can keep more than one sparkling gourami, but sometimes the males will chase each other around a little bit, and sometimes they'll chase the females around so that they can mate. In fact, I did a species profile on the sparkling gourami. It was really cool because I caught them in the act and put that on video, and now it's out there. So, could you put one in a 10-gallon? For sure. If I was going to keep more than one, I really start liking 20 gallons to do that because it just makes it a little bit easier. Vince says, were you kissing your fish? How did duckweed get in your beard? Because I had the duckweed on my hand and then I was
He's
straightening out
always
my
doing
beard.
that.
Yeah, I was going like this and then I wiped duckweed into my beard. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with showing affection to your fish.
Oh,
I just want to say that.
some of them I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, I wish I could hug you. I wish I could just hug you.
Just
I
take them
love
out of
you.
the tank and snuggle.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what I've always wondered? And if you do this, it's whatever. But why is it that you'll see this? It's kind of a pet peeve of mine, I suppose. When people want to show a fish off, they take it out of the water and they show it to you in their hand.
I don't. Yeah, that's
And I always think,
very like.
well, one,
I don't like.
okay,
yeah.
even if it's showing color, it's still not realistic because it's not the color you would see while they're in the aquarium and the light is hitting them from the top instead of
True.
from the side. It's like the reason why bluegill looks so awesome when you catch them and you're going fishing. You're like, oh, I gotta put this in an aquarium. It looks amazing. And you put it in the aquarium, it looks like garbage. Well, because the light is hitting them from the side, it's a very different color. So let's put that aside. But let's say you were a hamster breeder. Would you take your hamster and dunk it in a whole bunch of water and hold it underwater for like a minute to be like, take a picture of it?
Yeah.
Look what this hamster looks like underwater. Isn't it great?
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
Look, we just got a whole bunch of kittens. Anybody want to buy a kitten? And kitten goes underwater. Nobody does that. But yet we take fish out and we show them out of water very unnaturally. And I don't know. I always wondered why. Why do that?
So wait, Jeremy says was petting my mud skipper today. If I had a mud skipper, I would want to do that, and I also want to give him a tiny little hug.
And you'd have to name him Muddy, the Muddy Mud Skipper Show.
Oh my gosh, they're so cute.
Blackfire
I
Aquatics.
love mud skippers.
I don't know why, but I cannot keep duckweed alive.
Oh,
So
lucky.
here, and by the way, for Joey too, if you have a lot of flow at the top of your aquarium, duckweed, all floating plants really dislike that. I don't care if it's duckweed, red root floaters, guppy grass,
Muddy buddy.
hornwort, just don't like a lot of flow. So if you want to really if you don't have fish that can eat it, you increase the flow at the top, boom, gone. What?
Emma says Muddy Buddy. That would be a great name for a mud skipper.
Sure.
And then Whip says, I feed kittens to my arowana.
Okay. Law. Oh my gosh. Look at my beautiful fish. Let's suffocate it.
I know, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
that's too funny. Vince says my fish have accents when they speak. Does anybody have, I don't care what type of animal it is, dogs, cats, fish, if you give them a voice, is the voice ever even remotely normal?
No.
It can't be.
No.
Like, you can't be like, oh, there's my, our dog Rocky. Oh, there's Rocky. Hi, everybody. My name is Rocky. How's it? This is very uninteresting. You got to give him a voice of some kind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very distinct personality. He's probably looking at you like, that's not what I sound like.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one, Alec. Butterfly Goodyead, Amica splendens. Yep. Iliodon white-eye. They will definitely chow down on some algae once in a while. That's true. Island has problems keeping redwood floaters alive. You do too, right?
So do
they
I.
They don't do well for you either. And
they don't like me.
We've tried those in tanks with no filtration at all. Some filters.
They don't
filters,
like me.
Sponge filters, hang on backs.
That's fine.
All in ones.
That's fine. They can be like that.
Mud skippers are cool, by the way, but they're brackish water for those of you who have never kept them before. So there's that small added complication.
Could you keep... Oh, I just had the image of the most beautiful tank. Picture this. Picture this. A 50-gallon lowboy,
Yeah.
anableps, mud skippers on the island. Can you keep them together?
Yeah.
Probably,
both
right?
brackish water. Anableps are brackish. Mud skippers are brackish. You'd have plenty of surface. You'd have a place. What I think would be cool with that then is you'd want to have a place for the mud skippers to be able to get out of the water, but still have access to some kind of flowing water, almost like a paludarium sort of thing.
That would
cool.
be epic.
Ted, great question. If only electric blue cars, how many in a 75 gallon? Go with 10. Get them small. Get them small. And like I said, I had a whole bunch that were breeding in a 40 breeder, and then I moved them to a 125. But I think you could do 10 in a 75. And then there's no guarantee that it's all going to be perfect. Sometimes you got to move some around. Sometimes you'll get a male with some screws loose. He's a little over aggressive, but I kept a big group together in a 40 breeder for a while. I don't recommend that long term, but then moved them to a 125, and they were model citizens in that 120, and even in the 40 breeder. Like I said, I even had a breeding group in there, and they weren't super aggressive about it. They would just kind of, I'm bumping the mic too. They would just kind of shoo the other fish away, but they weren't like chasing them up into a corner relentlessly or anything.
Oh my gosh. You know what? Zenny just brought up an excellent point. There would be so many googly eyes.
Jeff says, which mud skippers to get and how many, what size tank, and what tank mates. I have no idea. I've never kept them.
No.
Tazawa Tanks
Yeah.
has done a few videos, and they were very popular videos a number of years ago, 3-4 years ago. He had a really sweet mud skipper setup. So Tazawa, Zenzo, he would be the person to ask, or at least watch his videos, because he kept them very successfully.
What do they eat?
I haven't kept them. I have no idea. I don't know if they would eat pellet foods.
How big do they get?
About that big. That's as big as I've ever seen them.
How many can you keep in, like, say...
Oh my gosh, can you stop asking me questions?
Get it? I was just seeing how many questions you would answer.
Oh, I don't know. How many times do you want me to say it?
Oh, that was
Just
fun.
calling me out on my I don't know.
That's how I amuse myself throughout the day.
I guess so. Well, thanks for that.
Welcome.
Sometimes she'll just keep asking me questions, and I'll keep answering them.
He will.
And then I'm like, seriously? What is going on here? What planet am I on? Rob, thank you very much for the super chat. Hey, guys, what are your thoughts on bloodworms? Oh, good question. Are they a safe or healthy treat for fish to eat? Fish Story and Keeping Fish Simple recently posted videos that they are not a fan of them. So great question. I would say that I mostly agree with them on that. So I haven't fed frozen bloodworms in a very long time. I can't state this 100% for fact, but there were times when I fed frozen bloodworms that I wound up with some fish that were suffering from some bloat. And these were fish that should have been able to process them fairly easily. There is a possibility of transferring disease whenever you have frozen foods, especially I would say the frozen bloodworms would probably be the most likely to have that happen. So be careful there. I just don't feed them. I don't know if I don't need to. I mean, again, we've got all this. Again, I'm not trying to oversell this stuff, but you've got the Bug Pro stuff now. You've got high quality foods like this. I don't notice my fish needing that kind of food, right? My fish, and you watch the videos, right? They're in the background of all our videos. I show you the tank, so it's not like I'm trying to hide something or cover something up. I can't hide fish that are no longer with us anymore. So, but you look at the color and the way they behave and the way they live and how long they live, I don't need to take the chance. So for the most part, yeah, I don't feed them. And I would say I haven't done any research, a lot of research on it, but I do know that when I was feeding frozen foods, especially the bloodworms, that from time to time I'd have issues. And I do know that in the last 3 years, when I fed this stuff, I don't have those issues from feeding. I don't have fish that are suffering from bloat or anything like that. Matt says, what about blackworms? Again, I have fed blackworms very, very infrequently. It's a live food. Again, do you run the risk of potentially introducing some kind of disease? Maybe. Same thing with whiteworms. But now, in some cases, if you've got very small fish, you might have to feed some larval forms that are live foods and can't get around that. That's to be expected. But for me personally, I just don't take the risk. I have other foods that I can feed. The only live foods that I feed is live baby brine, because there's really not much of a risk there of introducing a whole lot of anything, at least nothing that I have ever come across. The only thing that live baby brine has the potential to do, if you overfeed it, is you wind up with hydra in your tanks. So, but for most fish, it's not the adult fish, it's not the end of the world. But if you've got a fry tank and you're starting to get hydra, that can be a little bit less than ideal.
Whip says, Alex is a smart guy, but give me a break. I've been feeding frozen bloodworms 4 times a week for 3 to 4 years. Everyone is fine. Besides the black ghost knife and fire eel, only eat black worms.
Yeah, and there are times when that can happen, right? Where you have fish that's just their... And some fish process bloodworms, protein, and any potential bad things that can come with it a lot easier than others, right? So that's another thing to consider is when you look at I'm going to nerd out, sorry, I know it's kind of late to do this, but when you look at the microbiome, when you look at the normal microbes in a fish's gut, they're going to be different based on what you're feeding them, based on where they were bred. So if you're getting fish from overseas, their gut flora is going to be much different than maybe fish that were bred in a tank around your house somewhere or in your own aquarium. So there are going to be fish that tolerate certain foods better than others. There are going to be fish that tolerate certain parasites better than others. I am not somebody who thinks that every time I bring in fish, I need to medicate. I quarantine them all, make sure they're good for 4 weeks. But if you think that I'm bringing them in, I'm going to medicate them and just pack them full of Expel P and Paracleanse and hitting them with General Cure and antibiotics, I don't do that, because I think long term that causes a lot more problems than potential issues it can solve. Your fish are probably going to harbor something, and because they have an immune system that either learns to clear it or tolerate it, it works out just fine. And that can happen with different species. It can happen based on the foods that you feed and where they come from.
All right, Oink. Thank you. All right. I recently saw a tank kit on Amazon she was appalled by the audacity to call it a betta tank. Yeah. Can you please advise that a 0.2 gallon is not appropriate for a betta or anything else?
Wait, that was on what?
Amazon. They brand these little tanks, these little microscopic tanks, as a betta tank. And
no. I mean, in my betta video, I said 2.5 was the bare minimum, but we really 5 gallons.
5
is what we generally go with.
And it all depends also on the activity level of betta. If you get like a king betta, I would even go up towards a
0.2 gallons. Do you still have that tank that's 0.2 gallons?
That
thing wasn't even big enough for a snail, like a ram's horn snail.
Yeah, but they'll even picture it on the container of betta in there.
I know, it's a joke, and not in a good way. It's a
non-funny joke
thing.
Yeah.
That is for sure. All right, hold on a second. I skipped around here.
Oh, Brent wants to know, is raising Daphnia realistic or viable?
Sure.
Yes, and I've kind of thought about doing that.
You can do that. Daphnia, and then vinegar eels, stuff that you can raise in your own home that's not being processed somewhere else, you have a lot higher likelihood of having no issues. Yeah, Daphnia, vinegar eels, live baby brine. I've thought about at some point just setting aside a 10-gallon and taking that live baby brine and then actually turning it into brine shrimp, for a little bit larger fish. So that could absolutely work as well.
Was that about the size tank that Flip had at the last
0.25?
Aquashella? It was like a...
You have that. That's that little...
I know, that's what I'm saying. It was a little...
Big.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking when I saw that setup, because Flip Aquatics, their channel sponsor, he does have a setup for Daphnia. And unlike if you do the traditional like baby brine shrimp, you don't have to dump it out every, day. It just stays there.
Well, vinegar eels too.
Yeah.
So
it just doesn't sound as fun. That was Daphnia for me.
I suppose. All right, I think we got time for a couple more. Emma says I had a culture of microworms, but it was kind of stinky. Yeah, it can be a little bit stinky, especially as the media starts to get a little older. You have to transfer it over, but you don't have to completely restart it all the time, which is nice. All right, hold on. Where did I see? Oh, good question. Lorraine says, do freeze-dried have the same disease risks? No, I don't think they do, because that freeze-drying process, at least in terms of bacteria, unless they're spore-forming bacteria, they're not going to survive the freeze-drying process. So they can't survive that drying out either. So not nearly as likely to cause disease. But then there's an argument that could be made that the freeze-dried foods are also not as nearly nutritious as the frozen. And that is a very strong argument, but it still has nutrition. It's just not going to be the same as the frozen. All right, let me keep going here.
Oh, that's funny. Noel with the funny little laughing eyes. 10-minute warning. Let's get those thumbs a poppin'. Hit the like before the end of the stream. Those little guys are so funny.
Matthew, thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate it. Just wondering, years ago, I had about a foot-long albino Oscar. Very cool. I used to feed it night crawlers. I got out in the yard. It eventually got a hole in the head and died. Do you think feeding him this was the issue? It's tough to say for sure. A lot of times, hole in the head comes from water quality issues. So I don't know. I mean, with an Oscars make all kinds of mess. They create a ton of waste, which creates a lot of nitrate. So like when we had our bottom 125, at one point had 3 Oscars or maybe 2 Oscars and a Nile tilapia that was 18 inches, along with some other fish. That tank, basically, we needed to water change that tank every week. Where the Oscars and the Nile tilapia, because they were big, they were almost like laying on their side. It was about an 85% water change. We brought it down to about here, just because if we didn't do that, the nitrate concentrations were through the roof. So often that can lead to that. So could it have been something that was brought in and made them more susceptible? It's possible. Sure. I don't feed anything that I find in the yard. So at least I haven't since I was a kid. I mean, when I was a kid, you'd find small worms and you'd chuck them in the tank and it would just be fun to watch the fish eat them. But I haven't done that in a long time. It's just, for me, it's not worth the risk. All right, everybody, I would say it's about time to call it a night because it's getting late. And some of you need to wake up and go to work in the morning and do a whole bunch of stuff and be busy. So thank you. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. We're going to be back same time, same place next week. We'll have another giveaway. And we will, what else were we doing next week? There was something else going on, but I'll think of it. Anyway, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Thank you to all of our mods for all the super stickers, super chats, and new prime timers. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Good night.